What's the fewest notes you can change and change key? That's kind of a trick question almost. If you don't change any, you can still change key in a way, right? You could go from C major to A minor, for example, or in this case, G major to E minor, because major and minor are relative to one another. And so you wouldn't need to change any note really to change that. You would kind of, you could do things that help, but it's kind of more of it's a bit more of a cadence thing, you know, like ending on it or beginning on it. But you could change a note if you wanted, and the best way to change the note is to have a 5-1 relationship. We talked about that before. So if you were in the key of G, then if you went to the 3 chord, in fact, you know what? Let's add another chord in there for a minute. So we'll have like a G, a 1 chord. Then maybe we'll do a 2 chord. And then we'll do the 3 chord. Let's go ahead and have a D chord. And we're expecting our 1 chord, but instead we play E minor. Right? Now, that could be used to, you know, it's not really modulating. They call it, it's like really, it's what people refer to as interchange. I don't know, it's not a big deal to really get the difference because it's more just changing to a key within a key rather than a wholly key that's unrelated, basically. And the way to change to a key that's unrelated is the most subtle way is to change one note. So that one note is a real change, you know, but it's only one note. And if you can do that while creating a 5-1 relationship, then you'll get the greatest resolution, like the strongest cadence. So examples would be where you take minor chords, like a 2 chord, a 3 chord, or 6 chord, and you raise the third, and that means you have a major triad with a flat 7, because when they were minor chords, they had flat 7s, right? So that changes it into a dominant chord, and so you'd have a 5 to your new key. All right. Another way you could do it is to take a major chord and flat the 7, then you have a dominant chord. So that means that you could play the 1 chord, then flat the 7, and suddenly it becomes a 5 chord of a new key. Or you could do it with the 4 chord. So you could, like, if you had a progression, like, for example, where you go G chord to C chord to D chord to G chord. That's pretty locked in. Like, that's got to be 1, 4, 5, 1. It's the only way it could be. Now, if you go 1 to the 4 chord and then to F, like, what happened there? Can you explain that? The F is not a 7 because it's a 1 chord. I'm sorry, because it's a major chord. It could either be a 1 chord, a 4 chord, or a 5 chord. Yeah, so it's like the G, if you look at an F, a G, and a C, you're looking at like C as the 1 chord, F being the 4 chord, and G being the 5 chord, right? Or there's another possibility too, which is that we never really went back to the G chord. Imagine a progression that went like this: G major to C to F, and then to G minor. Now that, granted, that sounds really awkward the way I just did it, but the idea here is that what that C chord was in secret was a 5 chord of F, and we changed the key of F, and that's why G was minor now, because it was a 2 chord. Yeah. Yeah, and it would be a little more, if you do it into A minor, it's a little more ambiguous still, because A minor could be the 6 chord in the key of C, could be the 2 chord in the key of G, or it could be the 3 chord in the key of F, right? And that's what we're dealing with there. So if you add the 7ths now, all this mystery goes away. That mystery, by the way, is like your gateway to subtlety anyway. But let's try it without it. So let's say you got a G major 7. and then you play C major 7. This can only be one thing now, because the major 7s have spoken. This is a 1 and a 4, right? It can't be C major and the 5 chord of G major 7, because that's obviously not 5 chord. It's got to be dominant, right? So this could really only be looked at one way. 1 chord, 4 chord. Even if you started with this chord. Like, their relationship is just that's the way it's a... there's only 2 major chords in a harmonized scale. The diatonic... how do I say this? I don't know how to say this the exact right way. Diatonic key together, yada yada. You get what I'm saying? In a key, there's only 2 major 7 chords, the 1 chord and the 4 chord. And these share that relationship. It's not like I'm going G sharp. Those would have nothing really in common. Anyway, so now what we could do is we could play G major 7 to C major 7, and then C7. Yeah, I don't have no alters or anything. Just that I just changed one note. That major 7, I flatted it, and that now we're in the key of F. Cool. So we have something like this: 1 chord, 4 chord. Change that 5 chord by 1 note to make it the that 4 chord by 1 note to make it the 5 chord of a new key. So we have, and now we're in that key. And then it won't sound. It doesn't sound so weird to go to a G minor now. Cool. Our harmony is more like that having that 5 chord created such a strong cadence that you was very clear you changed to a new key now. When we go to that F, it doesn't sound like a 4 chord like it could have. If we did the triads like we did, you go, this is 1-4, right? Could be. That doesn't sound resolved, does it? It sounds like a 4 chord because we'd have 4, 5, 1. Like you thought you were in the key of G. We're going 1-4, 1-4, 1-4, 1-4, 1-4, and then you go to F and you go, whoa, this is not in the key of G. But you can still hear, you hear this, meaning you were actually in the key of C the whole time. When you thought you were going 1-4, 1-4, you're actually going 5-1, 5-1, 4-5, 1. Now if I did the same thing with if I did it major 7, then we are major 7s. These are for sure 1-4. That's the only way that can be. And if I go 1, and I move that 1 flat to 7, now it doesn't sound like a 4 chord anymore, right? Now here's the thing. When we went like this, G, C, F. These are the triads to the same chord I played with the 7s. The only difference is the 7s made it very clear that you changed key. Because they narrowed the possibilities. You know what I mean? Once you heard that dominant chord, there was no other possibility than being in the key of F, because there's only one dominant chord in the key segment, in any key, right? Make sense?